This is lesson 4.3, point slope form. Your objectives are to write equations of lines in point slope form and to write linear equations in different forms. Point slope form is y minus y1 equals m parentheses x minus x1, where x1, y1 is a point on the line and m is the slope. Notice, it has to be a non-vertical line. You cannot write vertical lines in point slope form. So if you have a vertical line, there's no way to write it in this form. So keep that in mind. Write an equation in point slope form for the line that passes through the given point with the slope provided. Number 1. The line with a slope of 1, and it goes through the point 4, 1. Well, x1, y1 is your 4, 1, and your slope is 1. So substitute in y minus y1 is 1 equals m is 1, parentheses, x minus x1 is 4. Now simplify. 1 times x minus 4 is just x minus 4. So it's better to write it like that. Notice also, in your final answer, y1 was 1, and in the final answer it has a negative 1. x1 was 4, but in the answer it's a negative 4. The signs on your x and y will be the opposite in the equation as they were in the actual point. So it's a good way to check yourself. Always remember, they're going to have the opposite sign. Number 2. This line has a slope of 0, and it goes through the point negative 3, 2. Y minus y1 is 2 equals m is 0, parentheses, x minus x1 is negative 3. Now simplify. 0 times anything is 0, so this ends up being y minus 2 equals 0. Notice that in the equation you have a negative 2, but in the point y was positive 2. So it's a good way to check that the signs are opposite. Notice that when the slope is 0, it also really simplifies the situation here because 0 times anything is 0. Always simplify your final answer. Number 5. What about a line through the point negative 7, 2 with a slope of 6? Substitute into point slope form. Y minus y1 is 2 equals m is 6, parentheses, x minus x1 is negative 7. Now we can simplify. Don't leave it to say x minus negative 7, because x minus negative 7 is the same as x plus 7. And that's your answer. The y in the point was 2. In the equation it says negative 2. The x in the point was negative 7. In the equation it's positive 7. Remember, they get the opposite signs. Number 8. A line through the point 4, 9 with a slope of 3/4. Put it in point slope form. Y minus y1 is 9 equals m is 3/4, parentheses, x minus x1 is 4. Nothing will simplify. That one's finished. Write an equation in point slope form for a horizontal line that passes through the point 4, negative 2. Well, remember, a horizontal line has a slope of 0. Now substitute into point slope form. Y minus y1 is negative 2 equals m is 0, parentheses, x minus x1 is 4. Take your x1 and y1 from the point, and your m is the slope. Now simplify. Y minus negative 2 is really y plus 2, and 0 times the quantity x minus 4 is just 0. So that one's done. We now know three forms of linear equations. Slope-intercept form, which is probably the most useful, y equals mx plus b, where m is the slope and b is the y-intercept. We also have point-slope form, y minus y1 equals m times the quantity x minus x1, where m is the slope and x1, y1 is any point on the line. And then you have standard form, ax plus by equals c. A and b can't both be 0. A is non-negative, and a, b, and c are integers with no common factors. No matter where you start a linear equation, be prepared to convert it to any of these forms. So refer to this chart to remember what your final answer should look like. Write each equation in standard form. Number 1, y plus 2 equals negative 3 times the quantity x minus 1. We want standard form, ax plus by equals c. So we need the x's first, then the y's, then the equals, and then the constants. So we'll start by putting everything in its correct position. The x's are on the right in those parentheses, so let's start by distributing. Negative 3 times x is negative 3x, and negative 3 times negative 1 is plus 3. Now get the 3x's on the left. It's a negative 3x, so let's add 3x to both sides so that they move. Since I want the x's first in my final answer, let's go ahead and write them first now. It's a positive 3x plus y plus 2 equals 3. The x's are where they go, the y's are where they go, but the constants are not all in the right place. That 2 needs to move. It's a plus 2, so subtract it from each side. That gives you a 1 on the right. Now everything is in the right place. Make sure a, b, and c are integers. A is 3, b is 1 for 1y, and c is 1. So they're all integers. They don't have any common factors. And the first one is positive. This is finished. Get everything in its right position. Make sure they're all integers. Make sure they don't have any common factors. And make sure the first one is positive. Number 2. Y minus 1 equals negative 1/3 times the quantity x minus 6. We want standard form, which is ax plus by equals c. So let's start by getting everything in the right position. The x's are on the right in those parentheses. I'm going to have to distribute before I do anything else. Negative 1/3 times x is negative 1/3 x. And negative 1/3 times negative 6 is positive 2. Now, since I want the x's first, let's move them to the left. It's a negative 1/3 x, so let's add 1/3 x to each side. Ax is first, so let's write the x's before anything else. That's a plus 1/3 x, so it'll be positive 1/3 x. Plus y minus 1 equals, since the x's canceled on the right, all we're left with is a 2. I've got the x's first, then the y's. I need to move that 1 over to the right. It's a minus 1, so add it to both sides. Now I've got my x's in the right place, my y's in the right place, and my constants in the right place. Are a, b, and c integers? No. A is 1/3. B is 1 for 1y, and c is 3. But I can't have 1/3. To get rid of the fractions, multiply both sides by the lowest common denominator. The only denominator I have is 1/3, which is 3. So multiply both sides by 3. 3 times 1/3 x is just x, because 3 times 1/3 is 1, and 1x is x. 3 times y is 3y. And on the right, 3 times 3 is 9. Now, a, b, and c are all integers. There's no common factors, and the first one is positive. So that one's done. If you have any fractions, multiply both sides by the lowest common denominator. And on this one, the lowest common denominator was 3. Then finish up. Number 3. Y plus 2 equals 2/3 times the quantity x minus 9. Let's get standard form, which is ax plus by equals c. I need the x's first, and right now the x's are tucked in those parentheses on the right. So we'll have to distribute first. Nothing happens on the left. Now distribute. 2/3 times x is 2/3 x. 2/3 times -9 is -6. I need the x's on the left. They're a positive 2/3 x. Let's subtract 2/3 x from both sides. Since the x's go first, we'll write -2/3 x first. Negative because they were being subtracted. Then plus y plus 2. The x's canceled on the right, leaving -6. That's a -6 because it was a -6 before. Now the x's are in the right place, the y's are in the right place, but the constants are not all together. That 2 needs to move to the right. It's being added, so do the opposite and subtract it from both sides. -6 minus 2 is -8. Everything's in the right place now. A is -2/3, B is 1 for 1y, and C is -8. Are they all integers? No. I have a fraction there. So multiply both sides by the lowest common denominator. With only one fraction, use its denominator, which is 3. Multiply both sides by 3. 3 times -2/3 x is -2x. 3 times y is 3y. And 3 times -8 is -24. Now they're all integers. A is -2, B is 3, and C is -24. But the first one's negative. I need it to be positive. So when that happens, multiply both sides by -1, which changes every sign. And that gives us a positive 2x minus 3y equals positive 24. So get everything in the right position. Make sure you don't have any fractions. Multiply both sides by the lowest common denominator if there are fractions. And then change each sign if you have a negative for the first one. Write each equation in slope-intercept form. Number 7. Y plus 4 equals 4 times the quantity x minus 2. You want slope-intercept form, which is y equals mx plus b. The way to solve this into slope-intercept form is to just solve for y. Get everything in the right order, solve for y. 4 times x is 4x. 4 times -2 is -8. Solve for y. Subtract 4 from each side to get the y by itself. The 4's cancel on the left, and -8 minus 4 is -12. Your final answer is y equals 4x minus 12. The slope is 4 and the y-intercept is -12. no matter where you start. To get slope-intercept form, just solve for y. Number 8. Y minus 5 equals 1/3 times the quantity x minus 6. We're starting in point-slope form. We want slope-intercept form, so solve for y. Distribute first. 1/3 times x is 1/3 x. 1/3 times -6 is -2. Solving for y. Now just add 5 to both sides. It's being subtracted on the left. Add it to both sides to move it. The 5's cancel on the left. The 5 combines with the 2. -2 plus 5 is 3. And now we have slope-intercept form. Y equals 1/3 x plus 3. This slope is 1/3 and the y-intercept is 3. Number 9. Y minus 8 equals -1/4 times the quantity x plus 8. That's in point-slope form. We want slope-intercept form, which is y equals mx plus b. Solve for y, getting everything on the right to get slope-intercept form. Distribute first. -1/4 times x is -1/4 x. -1/4 times 8 is -2. We're almost there, but we still have a -8 with the y. That's y minus 8. Do the opposite and add 8 to both sides. The 8's cancel on the left. Combining like terms, -2 plus 8 gives you a plus 6. Y equals -1/4 x plus 6. When you start with point-slope form, just solve for y to get slope-intercept form. So no matter what form you need, make sure you use the correct one. Point-slope form, when you substitute the point values and the slope, watch your minus signs. Make sure everything gets simplified. When you need standard form, remember there can't be any fractions, and the first one has to be positive. And when you want slope-intercept form, just solve the equation for y, with the y on the left, then the equals, then the x's, and then the constants. Make sure you finish in the correct form that you wanted.